Okay, here we are again. It's Graham, and we're back with part two of the Elon Musk Something Smells. And I thought we could start off real quick here with the history of space travel. This is kind of interesting, and will get us into the mood. So here we go. Spacefaring or extinct? Who came up with that one? That must have been Werner von Braun. Technically, it's in space right now. (1946). Wow, I didn't know that. First dogs. Man's best friend. John Glenn, I suppose. First spacewalk. How'd you like to be that guy?
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
All right, so that was 1961, I believe. Kennedy made that announcement, setting up the space program.
Or more important, for the long-range exploration of space.
Combining with the formation of NASA in 58 or 59, I believe. And here we are on the moon. All the mission control guys are down there smoking cigarettes, ashtrays all over the place. A little different now.
The Eagle has landed.
Eagle has landed. The Mars Rover. I remember thinking when I was a kid, I wondered where they packed that thing. These are all the flyby shots. I mean, come on, these photos could be taken anywhere. That's Mars. There's Saturn spinning. (1981), the first space shuttle. Encounter with Halley's Comet. Wow. Guys are all happy, guys and girls. Soft landing. Okay, here. Now this is where Elon Musk is beginning to emerge, come into the picture. We have sort of the handoff. Old stuffy NASA is they're going to be cool. They're going to repackage themselves. They're going to be hip now. It's cool to explore space. India's getting into the act. Everybody's doing it. SpaceX has rockets that go backwards to land and recycle. There's the black hole. Nice clear shot. All right. So there's that one. And then next we were going to take a look at these guys. This is from 2013, the Mars Science Laboratory Curiosity Rover Post-Landing Conference. This was a big deal. I don't remember it myself, but we had landed a pod or whatever they call it on the Curiosity rover. It was going to be a mobile laboratory on wheels, and we had landed it on Mars. You would have thought that just touching down on Mars, although I suppose we had done it prior to this point in time, but still, because it's a big deal here, you would have imagined that it would have been plastered across the internet and the news media. Maybe it was. Maybe I just missed it. But anyway, here we go. Everybody's excited. Guys are going to come rushing into the room. Cameras all around. We have a gauntlet of thanks here. Let's move it along here.
A round of applause now that we've got them all up here. Thank you very much.
There they are. One guy's missing here. There's another guy here.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Mars. I mean, to NASA.
This guy's a comedian.
About an hour and a half ago, I went outside and looked toward the west, and I saw Mars there, and I said, in an hour and a half, you are going to have a visitor. And the planet smiled, and I knew that we were going to have good luck. So with this, I want to introduce you our fearless leader, Charlie Bolden.
Boy, I'll tell you, Charles, thanks very much. First of all, just let me say thanks very much to the entire team and all the teams not here. Some of the teams in places like Canberra, Australia,
Well,
and
can
up
you
in
imagine the
Goldstone,
expense?
because the Deep Space Network was what made it possible for us to be getting all the data and everything. So, but today, right now,
Okay,
the wheels of
I want to
curiosity
squeeze this in
have
a
begun to
half an
blaze
hour
the
at
trail for
least.
human footprints on Mars.
Let's see.
Curiosity, the most sophisticated rover ever of microbial life on the red planet.
There they all
President Obama has laid
There's the
out
loose
a bold
cannon,
vision
Michael
for sending
Madsen.
humans to Mars.
That's who he looks like.
A significant step toward achieving this goal. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you a very dear friend of mine. He is the President's Science Advisor, the Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, and a guy who was sweating through this. And as he told me a little while ago, he thought he was going to throw up at one point.
Uh-oh.
And he's probably mad because I told you that, but my friend, Dr. John Holden.
Risky business is going to Mars stuff.
I wanted to start by saying thank you for sharing that, Charlie.
These guys.
Well, today on Mars, history was made on Earth. The successful landing of Curiosity, which is, as Charlie has said, the most sophisticated roving laboratory ever sent to another planet, marks what is
Yeah, that's
really
big
an
news,
unprecedented
right?
technological tour de force. It will stand as an American point of pride far into the future. It's also just the latest example of a long-standing truth about the United States, that even the longest of odds are no match for America's unique blend of technical acumen and gutsy determination.
That's right.
Our
All right. Let's see. We get these guys in blue here.
and that's certainly
High-fiving. Job well done. Ladies, make your way here to the podium, to the dais. All right. Come on. Look at this. This is crazy. You can't get a word in edgewise here. Okay, so this is 2013, the 12 to 13. I'm sure they were working on it for a good many years prior. So by now you would think there'd be big things going on Look at these guys talking here. This is the funny guy again. There's somebody else in here.
And the Rover is made in the USA.
Made in the USA. They didn't ship it out. They didn't contract with China. These people.
Just to stay in character, we've been on the surface for 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 16 seconds.
Okay.
The last 8 months, and certainly for the 7 minutes of terror, has started to weave, an unbelievable story. As we get ready to transition to surface ops, I think what we really need to pay attention to now is that the Curiosity story is just beginning.
See, I think they should have waited till the surface ops started so they'd have something to show the audience that they could take home and spread around the news and the world, Some pictures, some massive flat screen behind them. Look, here's the evidence. But anyway, let's see.
And with that, I'll turn it over to the team. Pete, it's the guy in charge of this project.
Okay, so anyway, we get it, and they're excited, and we've been to, as far as they are concerned, and we should be concerned, we have gone to Mars. We landed the Curiosity rover. I think there were 2 before that, Spirit and Opportunity, I believe. So there were 2 prior to this, which I had no idea. I found out through these guys. They educated me. So, but there's one thing I have here, and I just want to show it to you. And this is by Agent S. He goes by the name of Agent S, his handle here on YouTube. And he has a little something to say about the Van Allen radiation belts. So let's see what he has to say here real quick. And then we'll go back briefly to that. But we got to keep going.
In this video, we're going to discuss yet another question, one of many, about the moon landing.
This guy wants answers.
With the Van Allen radiation belt. And this is a donut-shaped protective layer around the Earth. There's 2, actually. Let me bring up this diagram. There's an outer radiation belt and an inner radiation belt. So you notice that 2 really, what I would determine to be impenetrable layers. So, and that's something actually that NASA has on their website. NASA Van Allen probes spot an impenetrable barrier in space. So talking about the Van Allen belts
impenetrable
there.
barrier
Now, the reason
in
why
space.
I bring this up is because we supposedly landed on the moon, and here is the range right here from July 16th, 1969 to December 7th, 1972. Now, the very interesting thing about this is there's an Orion mission, an Orion spacecraft mission to take people to Mars. So there's the flight test. Now, this is scheduled to happen over the next few years. They're going in stages. They claim to be going in stages. But there's an interesting video that I saw that promoted this Orion mission, and I'm going to bring that up right now. Very interesting. Right at the end, actually, is where this scientist really just kind of blows my mind, and I don't understand what he's trying to say.
We are headed 3,600 miles above Earth, 15 times higher from the planet than the International Space Station. As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts.
All right, you see it says high radiation right there. So I'm going to continue to play it.
We'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Earth.
I want you to really pay attention to that. All the stuff that the radiation belts can harm, talking about that, as well as human life.
Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back.
Sounds logical.
But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Whoa, 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 wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I'm going to back that up. I know the audio is a little bit loud, bear with me, but
yeah, he's got to
listen to this
overmodulate
part.
Before we send people through this region of space.
Wait a minute. Back it up.
Challenges before we send people through this region of space.
One more time. I don't know if I'm catching this right.
Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Okay, we must solve this problem before we send people through this region of space. I don't know. I'm looking at this right now. Didn't we already do that? With Apollo 11, 12, 14. Well, 13 went through too because it didn't land, but it went through. 14, 15, 16, and 17. All these missions, 11 through 17, from 1969 until 1972 already did it. How do we have to create technology in order to get through these Van Allen belts in order to go to Mars?
Yeah.
Why do we need the technology? Why do we need to protect the equipment? Why do we need to protect the human life? Why do we need to solve the challenge to go through this region of space, which we already went through all these times from 69 until 72?
Right.
If the technology was in existence back then, or we were able to do it, why is it a challenge today in 2016? Just a question. That's all.
Yeah,
I pretty much know the answer from what he just said in that video, that we are not able to do that as of yet, which lends me just scratching my head, makes me scratch my head to wonder, well, if we can't do it now, how did we do it back then? Remember to like this video, remember to share, make your comment.
Maybe they lost the directions. I don't know. But anyway, moving on. Let me enlarge this here real quick. Okay, but forget all that stuff. Somehow we got there in 1969, and NASA says that we're having issues now getting through the radiation belts. But I would guess that, they've come up against this problem and they solved it 50 some odd years ago. So it should not be an issue now, but apparently it is. But at the same time, they want us to believe that we're, forget the moon, we're on Mars now. And so we left off here the other day with this pretty lady, her impression of her face here on Mars. And then we ended right after this paragraph, and we stopped because of this NASA press conference, which we just visited briefly. You saw, you can go back, and I'll leave the link so you can go back and look at that yourself. It's just very difficult to buy. But anyway, he says, notice that they were unable to answer any substantive questions from the audience. Only after you have watched these NASA guys should you return to the anomaly photos. Once you do, your mind will be in a more receptive state, and you'll start to see what is here or what is there. Yeah, I didn't want to drag on through that, but you're welcome to click on it and watch that entire Q&A session from the Mars Curiosity team. Addendum October 14th, 2015, which would have been 2 years after that 2013 video that we watched briefly, all the guys in blue that were so excited about the landing of the Curiosity rover. Another strange coincidence, if coincidence it was, I ran into some friends at a local pub this evening, and they asked me if I wanted to go with them to a movie. I asked them what they were going to see, and they said The Martian. That was the clip, the Matt Damon clip that was in the previous video, part 1. I immediately got a creeping feeling, as I usually do now when I think of any Hollywood movie, and begged off. When I got home, I looked up the film. Guess what it is about? Top spook baby actor Matt Damon. Spook is a reference to anyone working or affiliated within the agencies, CIA, NSA, etc. Spook baby actor Matt Damon is stranded on Mars. Being a biologist, he is forced to grow his own food in a greenhouse attached to the stranded lander. Curious how this ties into Musk's plan for Mars Oasis. Hollywood is still selling NASA's fiction almost 50 years later. But it's interesting how the movies tie into the narrative, the daily narrative that we see in the quote-unquote news, and the news or the movies parallel usually very closely, or at least within 6 to 8 months, maybe a year on the outside, so that it is always on the periphery of the public's awareness as to what's going on. So we are told Musk gave up on the ICBMs, which Russia wanted $8 million apiece for, deciding he could get the materials for only $240,000. That's less than a new home, less than $250,000. Okay, let me see if I understand this. We are being told the materials to build a rocket large enough to carry an entire greenhouse to Mars will cost only $240,000. In that case, I think we may have been overcharged for the Apollo missions, for which we were billed about $110 billion. I think we may be overcharged now for fighter and bomber jets, which cost up to $2.4 billion apiece. That's amazing. The B-2 bomber. Who knows how many of those we have? Nevertheless, we are told Musk invested $100 million of his fortune into SpaceX, which brings us to his fortune. And this is what I was always curious about, how this guy came into all this dough. And now he's running 5 companies, and he's still got time to hang out with Joe Rogan. At age 24, right out of college, Musk invested $28,000 of his dad's money in a company called Zip2. We are told this company developed an internet city guide for newspapers, then going online in 1995. That story is so full of holes it looks like Prairie Dog Town. You can't start a company with $28,000, at least not one you then sell 4 years later for $341 million to Compaq. He should have just retired. We are told Zip2 provided online publishing for media companies and had a contract with the New York Times, but the New York Times had been computerized since 1976 and online since 1981. By 1995, it would have already had all the customized portals it needed, which kind of leads you to believe that they mentioned the New York Times because the Times obviously is a massive newspaper, and they would have had to have been in on this and corroborate the story, right? Because they are mentioning specifically the New York Times, right? They bought this. They were in on this deal with Compaq. Supposedly they needed this, but then we find out that essentially they really didn't need it. But somehow they went ahead and spent that kind of money on it. I don't know. Compaq also had no use for internet city guides and online publishing portals in 1999. So this sale looks manufactured, but also you have to look at Compaq there, because they supposedly spent a lot of money on this this software package, this company. I am not the only one noticing that. Take the last link to Quora.com and you will see that a lot of people are asking questions about Elon Musk. It looks to me like the Zip2 story is being told to explain the genesis of Musk's fortune. The same can be said for Musk's alleged involvement with PayPal. At age 28, Musk founded another company using $10 million from his $22 million profit from selling Zip2. This company, X.com, immediately merged with Confinity, which contained PayPal. So Musk had absolutely nothing to do with founding PayPal, and even according to the mainstream story, was only used for his money. He came in on the merger and was only 28, so why would he have been made CEO? Oh, it sounds good. No answer. Also no answer on how he was able to leave the merger just 3 years later with $165 million. That's a 3-year return on an investment of 1,500%. If PayPal was already so profitable in those early years, enough to buy out Musk to the tune of $165 million, why bring him in the first place? That makes absolutely perfect sense. With big early investors like Deutsche Bank and Nokia, why would Confinity allow Musk to waltz in and soak up a large part of those profits? In other words, with money from a source like Deutsche Bank, why did they need Musk's paltry $10 million? My guess is all these companies are intelligence fronts, and intelligence just inserted Musk into the story later. Which brings us back to SpaceX. Curious that there is no mention of Musk's Wikipedia page of the explosion of the Falcon 9 in June of this year. Also no mention of it on the SpaceX page. Also curious that the footage from space.com of the SpaceX capsule Dragon docking with the ISS looks so fake. We watched some of that too. It's hard to tell because the CGI stuff that they mix in with the supposed quote-unquote real footage is there is such a vast difference between the quality that it's like the comment Musk made last year when he sent his car up in space. He said, "You can tell it's real because it looks so fake." That's an actual quote, and you can look that up. Just Google it. And I thought that was really telling and interesting that he made that comment. I encourage you to watch it and come up to your own conclusions, but to me, it looks like nothing but a series of anomalies. The ISS looks like a plastic model. I am just surprised they couldn't do a better job faking this. NASA's real budget must have dropped below six figures if they can't hire Hollywood people to create something better than this. I honestly don't understand why they spend $108 million on a movie like The Martian, but spend only $10,000 faking this docking sequence with the ISS. I guess they know that millions will pay $10 to be propagandized by Hollywood, but only a handful will watch this free release from NASA. Man, I mean, could be it. But I think people invest so much of their attention to the fact in a belief, which what do they say? Belief is the enemy of knowledge. They invest so much of their attention and so much of their it's something that I think fundamentally we really want. Space appears as a new opportunity so that we can leave the mess that we've made here and move elsewhere. It's almost like a do-over, right? A reset. But it would also seem like it could all be a waste of time. So we don't want to hear about that. No one wants to hear that it could be a massive sham. But you can continue to believe it, or you can ask questions. There's nothing that doesn't hurt the scenario at all, right? If it does in fact play out to our advantage, then no harm, no foul. So the valuation of SpaceX is also a red flag. According to the mainstream story, Musk invested $100 million. Founders Fund invested another $20 million. The first launch was estimated by Musk to happen in 2003, just 15 months after the company started. But there was still no launch by early 2012, 9 years later. Despite that, the value of the company in early 2012 was said to have ballooned to $1.3 billion. Based on what? After the alleged launch in May of 2012, the company's value ballooned again to $2.4 billion. But SpaceX is a private company, the only profit from which is made in supplying the International Space Station. Why would NASA hire a private company to do that? Surely NASA wouldn't have put the ISS into semi-permanent orbit without a way to supply the astronauts with food. That makes perfect sense. Weren't they getting food before 2012? Of course they were. So why should the federal government give huge subsidies to a private company to form so that this company could do what NASA was already doing? To see what I mean in more detail, remember that a large part of Musk's alleged fortune comes from SpaceX. According to published numbers, about $2 billion of his wealth comes from SpaceX stock. So basically, NASA has paid Musk that amount to do what he is already doing. This is one great argument against privatizing things and for keeping them as government projects. In public projects, you don't have CEOs and other rich assholes siphoning off a large percentage of the money. In NASA projects, they don't have directors. They have to pay $100 million salaries to. In NASA, they don't have directors they have to pay $100 million salaries to. That's interesting. In any government agency, supposedly they make peanuts, right? But in anything that is affiliated with the government, we get back to the NDAs and the privatizing of all information, security, everything's on lockdown, so nobody talks. Not unless you want to keep your job or trash any future ability to get a job, your dirty laundry. So even if SpaceX is a real project, it isn't clear why space funding has moved from public to private. My assumption is the project is mostly fake, and that answers the question. Space funding has moved to the private sector so that even more money can be sucked from the Treasury with even less real outcome and far less oversight. That's always what they fear, is any oversight. And if your Senate and the Congress is on the payroll, then you don't have to worry about anybody there stirring up any oversight. The con job became so much easier once this is privatized. Now let's move on to Tesla Motors. As with PayPal, Musk was not only involved in the founding, he also wasn't an engineer or designer. He just came in as a suit with a bag of money. So here we have the original two guys that started with, I think it was the Tesla Sportster, the electric Sportster. Notice two things about this 2003 photo. One, Musk is not in the picture. This is Eberhard and Tarpening. Two, the Tesla Roadster is complete. They are not posing with drawings or schematics, are they? They are posing with the car. If you don't believe me, ask Martin Eberhard, who sued Musk in 2009. Among other things, Tesla founder Eberhard claims in the suit that in his zeal to appropriate Eberhard's legacy, Musk instead sullied Tesla Motors' integrity and blemished Tesla Motors' reputation and prosperity. He also accused Musk of libel, slander, and breach of contract. Although it is claimed Musk countersued, the suit was eventually settled out of court, which of course means Eberhard won, and probably won really big. So this goes on to, we're going to end this right here, and we'll see if we go with a part 3 and finish this up. But anyway, it goes on to say that there were a number of other suits, and let's see, it also makes sense for Tesla Motors in 2014 to open up all its technology patents, basically giving away everything it knows to its competition for free. We are told this is to speed up worldwide development of electric cars, but once again, it isn't believable. The board of directors of a real company would have fired Musk in a split second for something like that. It now looks to me like Musk was probably inserted into Tesla Motors expressly to destroy it. Big Oil may have inserted Musk into Tesla in order to eviscerate the competition from the inside out. I wonder if Eberhard ever considered that possibility. It could be, but again, if they want Tesla to continue on and continue making cars, which I'm sure they do, the government has deep pockets because they have our pockets. And you really should rethink the idea of an electric car, or at least from Tesla, because essentially it's like driving around with you're tracked by your cell phone, and now you're tracked with your car. It's just a computer on wheels. The concept is great. Electric cars are fantastic, but we still have a ways to go. But anyway, that's another topic. So we're going to end it right here at 30 minutes, and possibly we'll come back with part 3. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.